Welcome to the ITSM community event, Ask the Expert. Today we're going to be looking at the Common Service Data Model. And I'll be walking through some of the very cool things we've been doing in this area, and we wanted to share these with customers and partners to give you a sense of where we're going with this. So let's talk first about what the Common Service Data Model is. It represents a shared set of service-related definitions that span the ServiceNow product portfolio and the Now platform. They are being standardized for a couple different reasons. One, to ensure accurate service reporting. Two, to provide consistent use in standard terms. And three, to provide more prescriptive guidance when it comes to service modeling for customers. The data model includes the recommended mappings of the service-related tables and the CI class mappings. The initial model focuses on the IT portfolio. And while the model is extensible now, and we understand that each customer implementation may be slightly different, our intent is to provide clear, conceptual, and physical mapping guidance for service-related objects. So as we start this event, I just want to call out that as you're thinking about questions while I'm going through this presentation, please post them to the community, and we will get back to you with a response. So today we're going to be covering the Common Service Data Model itself. I'll walk you through the actual model. We'll go through the lexicon for CSDM, the terms and definitions. And then I think we'll spend the bulk of our time talking about some CSDM implementation examples. We've actually mocked up a few examples of customer environments using CSDM or applying it. And then I want to switch over and talk a little bit about the different personas and how they consume CSDM. And then we'll wrap it up with a short conclusion. So real quickly, I wanted to put the safe harbor slide in here for one particular reason. The CSDM work is still ongoing, and we are continuing to refine this. We feel like it's pretty solid right now, and we have posted all of the CSDM collaterals out to the community site as well. However, it is important to note that some of this is still subject to change, and it's forward thinking in some cases. So I just want to be clear that there is still ongoing work with CSDM. So let me tell you a little bit about who I am. My name is Greg Morrison. I'm a technical architect with the ITSM business unit in San Diego, California. And while I'm an architect on the ITSM side, as you probably can imagine, CSDM spans all of our products and platform. So the initiative around CSDM is much broader than ITSM. However, there is an IT portfolio focus, at least in the first version of this. So my experience is I'm a veteran service management practitioner. I've been around the ITIL, ITSM, COBIT, IT for IT environment for a very long time. I have a number of certifications in those areas. And one of the things that I like to share with folks is what I think I bring to the table is really this mix of both the practice and the theory side of IT implementations and IT transformation. So my current projects are the ITSM reference architecture, the Common Service Data Model. I'm the product owner for that. And then just generally ITSM best practices. So one other important note on this is as we continue to develop CSDM and document it and provide examples for customers, we do intend to fold CSDM into the ITSM reference architecture or into a more generic version of the reference architecture that spans all of ServiceNow. So that's the direction that we're headed with this. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the model itself. So this diagram contains some short descriptions for quick reference purposes, and the detailed descriptions have been posted to communities as well. And so as we take a look through this, it includes both the lexicon, the information architecture, key personas, and some mock-ups. And while the intent here is to provide prescriptive guidance, we understand that each customer environment is slightly different. So we've made the model extensible enough so it can be applied that way. The following object descriptions will be discussed from a top-down perspective within the model. While there are cases when it may be desirable to build the model from the bottom up, The recommended guidance is really to begin by defining the organization's business capabilities and then working down this stack We're not suggesting that this model is a linear model, but understanding how the business views IT services can be incredibly helpful when it comes to defining the model. Sometimes this can be a bit more challenging for us as IT professionals, since we tend to focus on the technology aspects of services. But if your organization has a business relationship manager or a strong advocate that's embedded in the business, they can be incredibly helpful when it comes to defining capabilities, business applications, and logical services. So as we look at this model, if you look over in the upper right-hand corner there, you can see the various domains that are represented here. So the business domain, the service domain, and the application domain. And these pretty closely align with our product portfolios of ITBM, ITSM, and then ITOM, or the infrastructure pieces. So if you look at business capability, it really represents that high-level capability that an organization requires to execute its business model or fulfill its mission. And the business application represents all of the software and infrastructure elements or environments. And this may include dev, test, and prod. It may be geography-based, where it's Americas, APJ, EMEA. There's a variety of ways to represent business application. And then if you jump over to the right, the portfolio is really a collection of services, products, projects, or applications. So as we move down the stack a little bit, you see service is a means of delivering value to customers by facilitating the outcome customers want to achieve without the specific ownership or the ownership of specific costs and risks. So this is pretty consistent with the ITIL definition. However, we do offer 3 service types out of box when we ship the product, and that's business, technical, and application service. And then the service offering is really a stratification of the service into capability, availability, pricing, packaging, and options. And I'll show you some very concrete examples of this as we move into the mock-ups that we've put together. And then the service catalog provides a consumable view of available products, services, service commitment options, and the offerings. And then over on the left-hand side in the orange boxes, an application is any developed program, modular, or group of programs that is designed to provide specific functionality on a compute infrastructure. And then lastly, one that we're pretty much all familiar with are just the configuration items, are physical and logical components of the infrastructure that are currently or soon to be under configuration management or under the control of change management. So as you look at this model, you can see it's a pretty solid representation, and we believe that we're going to start to drive pretty strong consistency within our product lines and portfolio to make sure that we're using these definitions consistently within our products, and we're offering specific guidance up to customers about how to do this as well. And then you can see over in the blue box on the right-hand side, we've taken a pass at defining what business, technical, and application service are. So business service is a service type that's published to the business users, and it typically underpins one or more business capabilities. Whereas a technical service is a service type that is published to service owners and typically underpins one or more business services. Now, we have had a number of discussions about where to go with this over the long term, and I think where we're leaning towards is starting to flatten this even more with business and technical service. But we also recognize that customers today in most cases, make a pretty clear distinction between business and technical services. And the model is extensible enough where customers can move into other areas as well if they want. For example, it could be medical services or healthcare services or something that's specific to their business and can be tailored to their business. And then the last service type that we ship with out of box is application service. And this is a service type that represents something with a clear application flow that's either presented as a business service or as part of a business service. So the next thing we'll look at is the conceptual mapping to physical mapping. So where these go in the different tables and CI classes. So if you look at business capability, that should map to CMDB _CI _business _capability. You can see business process goes to the CMDB _CI business process, business app. And then there's two different portfolios from ITBM. We have the PM portfolio, and then we've got SPM with the service portfolio. Again, we may look at in the future flatten these a little bit more or bringing a little bit more clarity to them, but today there's two very different areas there. And then from a service perspective, we've got logical services, which are mapped to the CMDB_CI service. And then service mapping and manual service models are in CI_service discovered. And then service offering goes in the appropriate service_offering. Catalog is SC_catalog, and so on. So as we dig in a little bit to the definitions in portfolio, again, one of the primary drivers is to make sure we're consistently using these terms both in our products and really to give customers guidance. Now, we understand that there may be areas within your business where you want to modify these slightly, and that's totally acceptable, and we recommend it. But we try and provide some base level guidance. So as we move down the path of, more accurate service reporting and things like that, that we're using a common set of terms across all of our products. So let's start with portfolio. It's a collection of services, products, projects, and applications. And then you can see over in the right-hand columns, what we've done is really extended that definition a little bit to talk about some specific examples and to elaborate a bit on the base definition. So we did this for a couple reasons. One was we wanted to keep the base definition very concise, so it's easier to remember and articulate in discussions, but we also wanted to provide enough notes and examples so that it was clear what the actual definition was representing there. So let's just walk down these real quickly. So the portfolio is used to manage like terms together for a business. These may be grouped by objective, capability, organization, or geography. And then the business capability is a high-level capability that the organization requires to execute its business model or fulfill its mission. The example is a business capability is typically described in the context of performing one or more specific tasks to achieve those business outcomes. So think of demand management, financial planning, those types of examples. And then we talked about services and the three different service types, and we elaborate on each one of those in a little bit more detail. What we're going to do in communities over the coming weeks is really publish a much more prescriptive set of guidance around how to use these within the context of our the ServiceNow portfolio, application portfolio, and products, so that it's easier for customers to consume this. And then the second page of these definitions are business applications, where it represents all software and infrastructure environments. This can be dev, test, and prod. And as I mentioned earlier, some of this can be based on geography and those types of things. And then the catalog, service offering, service commitment, configuration item, asset, and then operating model. And what we will be doing with these definitions over time, we feel like these are pretty solid, but we're going to continue to extend and add more definitions into the common service data model so that we can continue to add clarity. So let's take a look at applying some of the models. Here's the first example that I'd like to run through. So you can see that we've actually represented a hierarchy of business capability here. And the business capability is typically described in the context of performing specific tasks to achieve a business outcome. So in this example, you see we've got develop and manage human capital as the top level or the parent business capability. And then we've got recruiting, payroll administration, and onboarding as the leaf node capabilities that sit underneath that. And you can have between 1 and 6 different capabilities that in this hierarchy model. And of course, 1 is the parent and 2 through 6 will be your leaf nodes. And it's recommended that customers use the business capability form to create, modify, and extend business capabilities. So if you add a new capability or update an existing capability at the leaf node level, then all of the levels of those capabilities for the leaf nodes in that hierarchy must be updated as well. So underneath that, you can see next is represented by the business application. And in this case, we're using ADP talent, ADP payroll, and benefits. And as I mentioned earlier in the discussion, this is not necessarily a linear model. So in this particular case, you can see the ITBM pieces, or the business management pieces, business capability, business applications, are off to the side. And then we've got the service model to the right, which in this case, the business service is payroll. The example we have here, there's a child business service, which is time cards. And then there's two offerings that make up time cards. It's for exempt and non-exempt. And then if you break out that offering and look at the underlying application services, you can see scheduling and time and attendance as the two application services. And then over in the center lower area, you see your technical service there, where you've got hosting. In this example, you've got cloud and on-prem, Linux small and Linux large. And then your infrastructure CIs in the orange boxes, where you've got an Apache server, database, infrastructure, and a server as well. So this is just a solid representation of developing and managing human capital as a business server. So the recommendation here is, if you're just starting this journey as a customer and going through, how to map out some of these services against the common service data model, what we would recommend is that you pick out a couple key services and start with those and model those out, because at least in our experience, what we learned is taking a few of them and mocking them up really helps us elaborate on the other models and look at areas where we can adjust. One other quick comment on this: these models are still work in progress. These particular examples have not been published to communities yet, but we expect that to happen in the next few weeks. The things that we still want to add to this are the relationship types that are represented here. So things like depends on is related to those kinds of representations of the relationship. So we will add those before we publish this.
Oh, great.
Yes.
I think I have. I think I'm hearing myself. But anyway, we had a user that said, please relate the examples to ServiceNow licensing restrictions.
So the licensing restrictions, what we're going to do with the common services data model, and this work is already in progress, but it's a great question, by the way, is the common service data model elements will be part of the Z-boot. So there won't be licensing restrictions on the model itself. The real value, particularly if you think about things like business application and business capability, will come with the add-on components from ITBM. But the base common services data model will be supported in the New York timeframe out of box, so that customers can create their models using the tables, and the plugins will be there, and all of that is part of Z-boot. All right.
Just a reminder, New York is one of our upcoming releases.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. Okay, the next example is sales and marketing. So in this case, we've got the top level parent capability is sales and marketing. We've got sales administration, product marketing, and customer relationship management as the leaf node capabilities. And again, you can take these down basically 6 layers if need be in your organization. And then business application is, in this case, we did a little bit of a different shift of business application to show how it can be changed based on your needs. In this particular case, we're basing the business applications based off the geographies. So we've got EMEA, Americas, and APJ representations of those environments. And then from a business service perspective, we've got campaigns. The offerings are email and social. And then we've got application services of messaging and Facebook. And then you can see the messaging drops down and goes into Exchange. And then the infrastructure. And then you've got the technical service there related to the left as well. So the third example is employee incentives and development. So same kind of model. You've got performance planning, continuing education, and employee incentives as the leaf node capabilities. And then the business applications are compliance training, product training, and new employee training. In this example, we're just showing how the offerings can be virtual or classroom in this particular business service. And then you see the application service that underpins that. Now, there's one thing that we're recommending customers do, but we're not going to mandate it from a product perspective, is ideally each business service should have an offering of some type, but it's not required, because in our discussions with several customers, not all customers are using offerings today or having offerings for each service. So ideally, we would like to see that as part of the best practice, but also we recognize that that's always not realistic for every customer. So we've mocked up a few examples. I'm just going to jump back a couple slides to point out one example here. If you look at the upper right-hand side where we've got this business services payroll, there is no specific offering off payroll in this example. But as you drop down in the hierarchy of business service, now you've got time cards, and there are offerings associated with that. So the point of sharing this is not every service is going to be required to have an offering. Ideally, we would recommend that, but understanding that there are situations where that may not be practical. So next, I'll shift over and talk a little bit about the various personas. So as we started down the CSDM exercise, we very quickly learned that different personas have different views of CSDM and how they want to consume it. So from an ITOM perspective or an IT operation or manager's perspective, they pretty much supervise all IT-related decisions and personnel. And their responsibilities include overseeing day-to-day IT operations, event and change management, Tier 2 and Tier 3 support services, remediation activities. Sometimes they're managing a NOC or an IOC, and automation management, improving operational efficiencies. So the IT operations manager needs to be able to view all impacted services and relationships, and they want to monitor and manage services, applications, and infrastructure, and then detect and discover, remediate issues to minimize service interruptions. So therefore, from a CSDM perspective, they need to be able to accurately represent the entire service, to accurately represent the components of a service CI, and provide a basis for consistent service reporting. And then from a service owner perspective, we see the service owner as having more end-to-end accountability for the entire service throughout its life cycle. And with the service portfolio management that's coming out in Madrid, you're going to have a service owner dashboard that really shows you that end-to-end life cycle, where you can look at performance, the health of a service, the cost associated with it. But their responsibilities typically include, monitor the progress and updates, usually across multiple services. They provide status updates and ensure the services are performing as desired or designed, and that they're satisfying the needs of the customer. As such, the service owner needs to utilize SPM to monitor service statuses, communicate with other business units to collect insight and information regarding the services, track the performance of a service, and manage the value of the service providers to customers. So from a CSDM perspective, they're establishing consistency across different types of services. They're providing uniform standards by which services can be measured, managed, and visible. They ensure comprehensive communication between stakeholders of a service and provide a basis for consistent service reporting. The service manager is typically responsible for day-to-day operation or delivery and operation of a service. And their responsibilities typically are monitoring operations and life cycle of a service, executing service improvement changes. And as you probably know, with London, we launched our continual improvement module. And they respond to performance and operational issues, request changes to a service record. And as such, the service manager needs to quickly identify problems and actions to address them, achieve a reduction in operations, the noise there, and have visibility into all information needed to operate his or her service. So therefore, CSDM, the Common Service Data Model, will ensure consistent performance measurement, allow for uniform terminology when collaborating with peers, especially when addressing or remedying an issue, and then provide a basis for consistent service reporting. So the Service Portfolio Manager creates and updates the taxonomy and service records in the ServiceNow tool. They're establishing standards, guardrails, and compliance requirements of the portfolio. They're ensuring overall quality of the portfolio data, maintaining accuracy, standardization, and consistency across the service lifecycle. And as such, the SPM manager needs to communicate consistent terminology regarding the ServiceNow tool, collaborate with stakeholders to establish requirements. So therefore, the Common Services Data Model will reduce the guesswork and development needed for service definitions. It allows the Service Portfolio Manager to leverage the taxonomy research already done within ServiceNow and to provide a basis for consistent service reporting. And then lastly, from a persona perspective, we felt like the enterprise architect has a slightly different view, so we wanted to address that persona as well. And they basically are creating business architectures or information architectures that reflect the IT strategies and goals. So they're finding ways to improve our IT functions so that they support future goals. They're evaluating operating models for discrepancies and vulnerabilities, locating ways to reduce IT costs, and providing that business and information architecture and system processing guidance. So as such, the enterprise architect needs to quickly identify opportunities for improvement, evaluating operating models, and identify cost savings. So CSDM will help them by providing consistent architectural reviews and reports. They'll provide clarity between service, capability, and product, and they'll also provide a framework within which those architectural decisions can be made. So the key takeaways from a CSDM perspective are it's really intending to provide more accurate service reporting. So if you think about as we start to align all of the terminology and the use of these information objects in our data model, it really starts to bring the reporting aspect of services much closer together and streamlined so that it's easier to provide that information and share that information with stakeholders. And then the consistent use of standard terms along with prescriptive mapping guidance. So a lot of times we get questions from customers about where to map certain things in the products in different tables. So we want to be very intentional about how we provide that information so that customers aren't having to go off on these exercises and figure it out on their own. And then lastly, provide prescriptive service modeling guidance, service modeling and mapping guidance for customers. So as you're looking at services, what does that hierarchy look like? And then, as you know, one of the things we're really trying to do is improve the user experience and change the way people work. So part of the driver with CSDM is starting to bring the pieces together and helping customers so that they don't have to go off and solve some of these service models themselves. We can provide pretty clear guidance around what that looks like for them. So in closing, that's where we are with the Common Services Data Model. We've got almost all of this posted on communities. We will be updating the examples out there and making that available to customers and partners as well. I would encourage you to participate in communities and provide us feedback if you think there's things that in your particular environment that we have not addressed or accounted for in our Common Services Data Model work. I'd ask that you share that via communities or reach out to myself, Greg Morrison at ServiceNow.com, and I'd be happy to work with you and better understand what some of those requirements are. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, Greg. We look forward to having people host on the community.